relief, but of anger. The families of Valdo Calocane's victims say they've been denied justice. They wanted him tried for murder, not manslaughter. But it's not just prosecutors they blame. They say police and mental health services have also failed to do their jobs properly.
True justice has not been served today. At no point during the previous 5.5 months will be given any indication that this could conclude in anything other than murder. We trusted in our system, foolishly as it turns out.
The letter of the law was once considered the most important rule to live and abide by, put upon us to make the country a fairer and safer place. Now they're just a cautionary tale, where the calculated, cold, brutal killing spree can be reduced down to something that falls within the same sentencing restrictions and guidelines as that of death by dangerous driving.
We will look for answers regarding missed opportunities to intervene and prevent this horrendous crime.
Calocane was seriously mentally ill when he killed 19-year-old students Grace O'Malley Kumar and Barnaby Webber and 65-year-old Ian Coates. As a result, prosecutors decided a conviction of murder was unrealistic and Calocane pleaded guilty to manslaughter with diminished responsibility.
Valdo Calocane, I will say at the outset that the sentence I'm about to pass on you will result in you being detained in a high-security hospital, very probably for the rest of your life. You were and remain dangerous.
It's 5:30 on the morning of the 13th of June. Boxed in by an unmarked police car, a lone officer runs to a stolen van. Inside is Valdo Calocane. Calocane is tasered and then arrested, but 3 people are dead, another 3 are in hospital. CCTV footage released today shows Grace and her friend Barnaby in the minutes before they died. The 19-year-old students are walking home after a night out. Calocane, hiding in an alleyway, attacks them as they pass by.
Emergency, what's the emergency?
Yes, there's been a stabbing on Wilkinson Road. There's somebody lying in the street. I think they're dead. Oh, that was awful.
Whereabouts in Wilkinson Road, please?
Outside the Wilborn building, near the crossroads.
Calocane calmly walks away, a rucksack on his back. Inside are 3 knives and a scaffolding pole. Then, in more chilling footage, he's caught trying to climb into a homeless hostel. The man inside punches him in the face. Calocane has subsequently admitted he was trying to kill again. He continues walking for a few minutes. Then he kills his 3rd victim, 65-year-old Ian Coates, before stealing his van. Calocane then drives the vehicle to the city centre, where he deliberately careers into 1 pedestrian and then 2 more. In the interviews after his arrest for the attacks, did he ever explain why he'd done them?
He replied no comment to all of the questions that were put to him. So no, he didn't offer any explanation. The officers who interviewed him described him as being very vacant and disengaged, so didn't engage in the interview process at all.
But could Calocane have been stopped before he killed? In 2020, Calocane was diagnosed as suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. He was sectioned twice that year. Police and mental health staff were involved. In 2021, while he was being sectioned a 3rd time, he assaulted a police officer. The following year, an arrest warrant was issued when he failed to appear in court. He was sectioned a 4th time after assaulting a flatmate by putting him in a headlock. Grace's father believes the police should have tried harder to find him after the arrest warrant was issued.
If this person had been put in front of the courts, in front of a magistrate, these things might not have happened.
That may not make much sense, but anything that could have been done to make sure that Grace was still here today is everything to us.
On Friday, in an interview to be broadcast after sentencing, the Assistant Chief Constable said he believed nothing could have been done to stop Calocane.
If he'd been to court, prosecuted and convicted, the likelihood in the context of that case of him going to prison, I would say, was slim to negligible, so wouldn't have gone to prison. Might it have triggered some additional intervention from a mental health perspective? It might have done, but actually when you look at his history and his willingness to engage, well, that was almost non-existent. So I've laboured over this and I think about it a lot, but my honest assessment is that no, I don't think that we could have done anything that would have made any difference and prevented what we now know happened on that dreadful day.
But yesterday, the Assistant Chief Constable changed his position and conceded they could have done more. That's enraged Barnaby's mother.
To the Assistant Chief Constable, Rob Griffin, who finally released this information publicly yesterday, I say this: you have blood on your hands. If you had just done your jobs properly, there's a very good chance my beautiful boy would be alive today.
In response to criticisms of the mental health services, NHS Nottingham said when the patient was discharged back to the GP, several attempts were made to contact him, but no response was received. The NHS Trust added, if a patient no longer engages with our services and support and they do not meet criteria to be detained under the Mental Health Act, they're discharged back to the care of their GP and can be referred back into our services at any time. Calocane should not have been out on the streets of Nottingham, according to his own barrister. But the Prime Minister has declined to back calls for a public inquiry, and the CPS, in response to criticism from the families, says it did meet with them twice. But that won't satisfy Grace and Barney's parents and Ian's 3 sons. They say their fight for justice is far from over.
Jane Dodge reporting. Well, a short time ago, I spoke to Police Sergeant Richard Cook, who chairs the Police Federation in the West Midlands, and I asked first for his reaction to the case today.
Oh, absolutely. You know, 3 totally innocent lives lost. You know, another 3 to add to the knife crime sort of epidemic we've seen the last few years. It's absolutely awful, and my heart goes out to the families.
I mean, the Assistant Chief Constable has said that an arrest might have triggered a return back into mental health services for this man, but it's unlikely on his past that he would have engaged in the process. I mean, in a sense, that isn't really a judgment for the police to make, is it? He should have been arrested. That's just fact, isn't it?
I wouldn't like to comment on the individual circumstances. What I do know from my career and my criticism of policing throughout my career, and I've been in the job for 24 years, is that very often with mental health, when the issues of someone having a mental illness is raised, we often shy away from taking the matter to court. And I think that includes some cases where the suspect is sometimes dangerous or displays signs of danger. Because the court is the place which holds the powers in many cases. As we've seen with this particular man, they've sent him away for a very long time, quite rightly so, in my opinion.
And yet there's a new policy that's been brought in since these killings, that where police are basically being told they shouldn't go out to respond to mental health-related calls unless they believe that the person is at risk of taking their own life. I mean, we know that a significant amount of police work is responding to mental health calls. So where do you get the balance right? How do you protect the public? How do you safeguard the person themselves?
Of course. I mean, I'm personally quite sceptical of that approach, because at the end of the day, if someone has got to judge where the serious, in inverted commas, risk to life happens and when should the police go. Someone's got to make that decision, and no case is the same. There's always nuance, and that is my fear with these sort of policies, that we lose the assessment of cases on the merits of that case.
And just very briefly, if you would, as you say, it's a big drain on police resources. In your experience, are you confident that when you find someone, when you have to arrest someone who has a mental health issue, are you confident that there is a place where you can forward them for the help that they need?
The support we had in the past with other partner agencies is gone. It's very hard to get beds for people who need beds, who've been assessed as needing mental health beds. You know, we're sometimes sitting with them for hours and hours, either in the custody environment or in hospital, waiting for a bed to be found. Early on in my career, I was assaulted quite badly with a knife by a mental health person suffering a mental health episode. This was 20 years ago, but they were arrested, and it was decided to treat them as for the mental health. So they were sectioned, and for 30 days they were in secure detention being treated. But after that, they were out, and the criminal matter, the matter that they may well have killed me, was never ever dealt with. And I think that's repeated throughout my career. And that's not through bad intentions. That's through good intentions to try and help the person. But what I'm saying is that we have first and foremost got to deal with that risk and manage that risk. And it's the courts that have those powers, and we're not using them, I don't believe.
Richard Cook, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.